My name is Joe Hymes, and I'm the venom curator for the Phoenix Herpetological Sanctuary. I've worked here for about 5 years now, and my job is taking care of all the venomous snakes you see in the wall behind me and down the hallway over there. And all of these animals usually come to us by way of either being illegally held pets at one time or another that somebody is injured by, or they escape and terrorize the neighborhood until Game and Fish is able to capture them, by way of people who weren't either permitted to have them or they were injured by them. And we'll get calls all hours of the day, sometimes in the middle of the night, from law enforcement saying they just found either a garage full of cobras and vipers or other scenarios like that. And then that's where we jump in as a sanctuary and try to give all these animals a place to call home. So for this snake, he is a very active snake, and I think I'll have you stand all the way back behind here, if that's
okay,
all right, if you're able to get me with the zoom.
Yeah, definitely.
And just so we have a plan, if he comes out, I'm going to get him onto the floor and keep him on this side of the room. If he starts coming towards you, there's another room back there you can retreat into. Just close the door. Don't worry about me. I'll get him in eventually.
Okay.
And just to double check before I open this, you feel comfortable with it?
I feel very comfortable.
All right. So the big thing about cobras is they don't have a rattle like a rattlesnake to warn you to get away. So they try to do that by just making their heads look bigger, making them look scarier, making noise with their mouth instead.
Well, he's active.
See, he's not necessarily trying to get me, he just
Wants to get away?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's a big thing we try to teach people about here is, yeah, these animals are venomous and have the potential to hurt people, but they don't want to as long as you leave them alone. And I'd prefer to leave him alone. He's got poop in his water bowl that I gotta clean up. And that was poop he just flung across the room. If they can't bite you, that's their other line of defense.
Whoa. Whoa.
They will try to make themselves too gross to mess with. Oh, come on, don't show off.
It's definitely interesting.
I was just training someone this morning on how to work with these species. Just the rattlesnakes, getting them started with venomous. And so much of it is hard to train people on precisely just because you have to work with whatever the snake's given you that day. And just kind of roll with it.
That was awesome.
Thanks. Well, that's the fun part of the job. And then it goes right into janitorial work, cleaning up leftover poop and the less interesting stuff. But he sinks around on that side.
Okay.
And if you need to get closer, you're welcome to. He's well contained in there. And, I see he sprayed poop all over the place. He would tell me if he's like sprayed half my face. And
You're good. You're doing
all
good.
right, just checking.
You're safe. I would tell you.
Growing up, I knew that zoo jobs were so few and far between. I kind of wrote it off, didn't think I would ever have a chance for that to happen. And just one thing led to another when I found the internship. It wasn't the most closely related stuff to what I was studying in school, but it was reptiles, which were my passion and what I was interested in. I was a weird kid who was breeding geckos all through high school because I knew I could at least kind of dip my toes in the industry that way. And I decided I hated breeding geckos because I knew that places like this existed where there were already tons of animals that needed a home, and why was I going out of my way to put more reptiles into the world? And so I knocked that off and ended up finding this place a few years later. And I kind of joked at the time I was volunteering so many hours to absolve myself of the guilt of breeding stuff. And it was half true. And because of all the hours that I was volunteering, I was just at the right place at the right time when a job opened up. And haven't been able to leave since.
So you primarily work with the venomous animals?
Yep, that's the majority of my job. But especially on Tuesdays when I'm really the only staff member here who works with the animals, our two other animal caretakers, and Tuesday happens to be their days off. So I kind of run around and do a bit of everything on Tuesdays. But for the most part, my time's spent in here with the venomous animals. All right. I'll put this here, I guess.
Okay.
And so if you want to start closer so you can see what I'm doing, and then just as I come towards you, maintain distance.
Don't have to tell me twice.
There we are. So their nickname is the fierce snake. And they don't really deserve it. Sometimes they'll act tough, but for the most part, they really try to avoid people. I'm going to close that door because there are two of them in there, and I don't want him coming out while my back is turned. Here, I had a conversation with the person who was the venom keeper at the time, and I was like, man, I respect what you do. I love learning about these animals. I was like, I don't think I really want to work with the venomous ones. I like sticking with the cute lizards. And probably a little less than a year later, I was working in the venomous room and hardly ever saw lizards, and this was my full-time job. So you never know what life has in store for you. Sit him down. All right, there they are.
So what do the snakes, I guess it's different for each snake, but what do these snakes eat?
Most of our snakes are on the same diet. We feed them all frozen thawed rodents. The couple exceptions to that are we also get frozen and thawed quail that will feed some of the arboreal snakes. Occasionally we'll have a snake that has a hard time eating when it first comes to us. And in those cases, we'll get live prey for them just to ease them into eating pre-killed prey. But for the most part, it's all frozen thawed rats. And we don't raise those here. There's a website for everything. And online, we order about $2,000 worth of frozen rodents every month to keep all the animals here fed.
If someone wanted to donate to your cause, where would they go to find that information?
Donations are extremely appreciated. And if you, anybody watching this is interested in donating to the sanctuary and keeping these animals fed and cared for, our website is phoenixherp.com. And there's a donation tab that will talk about Things that we need for donations if you want to actually buy supplies for us, or of course there's a just donate button where you can donate through PayPal or your credit card. And we also have an Amazon wish list if you want to have things sent to us that way, because we don't receive any state or federal funding. We're entirely funded through doing tours and our own programs and things like that. So every donation really goes a long way and helps us do what we do. These particular snakes are actually a good one to bring that up with, where people will buy these animals illegally. These inland taipans are the most venomous snakes in the world. Get that out of the way. And somebody here in Arizona was keeping them inside their home with their family, and thankfully they ended up, these ones have been here longer than me, so I don't know if they decided to bring it in or if Game and Fish ended up finding it, but they either way came to be here. But there was no anti-venom anywhere on this coast of the US for them, and our toxicologist has told us here, if we get bitten by an inland taipan, we have to make it to her office within about 30 minutes to have a good chance of survival. And this person who had them had nothing going for them, or we actually have the anti-venom. And I think our first Australian order of anti-venom cost around $40,000, which is several times more than any of the snakes in here go for on the black market. But the drugs you need to save your life if you get bitten are several magnitudes more expensive than the animals themselves. I'll just get their water dish and then they should be ready to go back.